I want to give Javed the floor now. Before he starts, I want to introduce him with a little bit. Uh, Javed he is currently a PhD student in the Department of Computer Science. We're here at Ryerson University. He is also supervised by Dr. Alex Furwin. Javed holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Telecommunication Engineering and a Master of Science degree in Electrical Engineering, where he specialized in communications and computing. Additionally, he obtained advanced training in cryptology and wireless communications. Inspired by previous work, he has special interest in information theory and cryptography. He's been involved in deployment and operations of data networks and data centers for a large government organization. He's also been acting as the Chief Innovation Security Officer. He's also been acting as the Chief Information Security Officer. Here at Ryerson, he's currently conducting research in quantum computing with a special attention in quantum cryptography. He's a member of an IEEE Computer Communication and Information Theory Societies. Again, I want to inform everyone that if you do have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. But once Javed has finished his presentation, there will also be an open chat forum, just like what we had. So here I'll pass it over to Javed and thank him for giving us this talk.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can, Javed.
Okay. Let me see if I can expand this. Good afternoon, everybody. I will expand this one rather than going to the full. You can see this, right?
Yes, we can still see.
And you can hear me also?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. How much time do I have?
So we can go until 2:30. So 45 minutes.
Okay. So I'll have a few, items on the agenda, which is introduction and then overview of classical with one slide only, and then quantum computing and quantum information and quantum operations, and then one slide for algorithms, and then I will go to demonstration. I will go through hurriedly with these slides and then go to demonstration because that is an interesting part. So first, we know algorithms is the heart of computing, honoring Al-Khwarizmi, and then Alan Turing formalized it along with Church that there can be a machine with memory control unit, read-write unit, and we can implement all algorithms on this machine, which is called a universal Turing machine. And then they had two more concepts. One was probabilistic Turing machine, and the other was accelerated Turing machine. And they thought that probabilistic Turing machine will be much faster compared with the classical deterministic Turing machine. And that was called Strong Church Turing thesis. And this thesis states that a probabilistic Turing machine can simulate any model of computation with at most a polynomial increase in the number of elementary operations required. It states that if a problem cannot be solved with polynomial resources on a probabilistic Turing machine, it has no efficient solution on any other machine. Any model of computation is at best polynomially equivalent to the probabilistic Turing machine. Now this strong Church Turing thesis was challenged by quantum computing. And first observation or the suggestion or the calculation was made by Peter Shor in 1994. And he discovered that he can factor a number into its prime factors. And there is no algorithm available on the classical machine which can do this as efficiently as it can be done on quantum computing. And in fact, before this, there was theoretical concepts available, but he showed it that it can be done. However, I will go through this and I will show you how quantum computing differs from the classical computing and then how we can have operations on quantum information. There is only one slide which I have made for just indicating what is our current classical computing is. Made of basically transistors, and those transistors mainly digital transistors. Digital means they can go into state from 0 to 1 or 1 to 0 in a fast time, that is very quickly. And because we are using voltages and currents with the help of electronics, there is a large noise margin in between 0 and 1. So it is a stable kind of computation. And it is deterministic. And with the help of these transistors, we make logic circuits, and our computation is based on Boolean logic. And with the help of these logic circuits, we can create CPUs, we can create control unit, we can have memory, we can have IO and interfaces. And accordingly, our current classical computer is made of these components. And we can now scale down these components so that we can go to micro scale and nano scale, and we can have number of rather millions and billions of transistors on a single chip. And if we have a system on a chip, we can have our current computers, which are laptops and telephones. We have system on a chip, and we have increased the power and also decreased the power consumption. But it has limitations, and these limitations are circuit density and clock speed. Still, we cannot increase the speed and circuit density, and Moore's law will be in difficulty. And this means, this is a book which is called Information, the New Language of Science. I bought this book in 2004. And in fact, before that book, in 1998, in IEEE Transaction on Communication, I read an article by Peter Shor, the algorithm which I mentioned earlier. Peter Shor had written an article in that magazine that was called Quantum Information Theory. But at that time, I had no interest in that, so I just read it and then thought there is no computation, it is only an information theory part. So I can study it, I may not study it. But after that, I bought this book, and there is a sentence in that. I found out that, and this was, as computation grows more massive and computers shrink in size, it is not difficult to foresee a time. And he predicted the decades of the 2020s has been suggested. When memory cells reach the 1 atom per bit level, at that scale, classical physics makes way for quantum physics. Now, this professor, Hans Christian von Baer, he is now retired, and he was professor in College of Williams and Mary, and people know this is a very famous college, and they specialize in physics and research in physics, and mainly quantum physics. So once I read that book, again, I neglected that, but this was a very good book, and I had this, and I have this till this time. However, now that I was guided by Professor Alex to go for deep learning and cryptography, particularly the homomorphic encryption. And there I found out that the encryption algorithms are now under attack by quantum computers. So I tried to study the quantum computers and quantum computation. So that is how I came into this. And I found out various terminologies there. And it started with quantum physics, quantum mechanics, quantum theory, quantum science. And it then people try to, code information into the properties of the quantum physics, which is quantum information and quantum information theory. And there were also research in quantum sensing. Particularly if we know NMR, then there the sensing devices are based on the alignment of the molecules. So that was again one of the quantum mechanics application. Then people started talking about quantum computing and quantum circuits and quantum algorithms. That there came Simon and Peter Shor and others. And again, along with Peter Shor, somebody came up with quantum key distribution and generation. And that was the time when it was considered that we can use this quantum computing for quantum cryptography and also for quantum communications, particularly quantum teleportation. This quantum physics can also be used for quantum simulation, where we can simulate material in their nanoscale level, and we can study the behavior of the particles, which are elementary particles. And currently we are at a stage where the quantum computers are not universal computers. They are at a noisy stage. Scale is intermediate, and we can use it for experimental purposes. And for the last 10 years, there have been a lot of effort on experimenting on these computers. How it started, I had 3 slides, but I put up only 1 slide here because the time before this and time after this, I have, taken out of this. It started in 1979 when Benioff, he indicated that physical systems can be simulated by computers. And then Feynman, who is the famous physicist, he had a article simulating physics with computers, and he also indicated that we can have computation with the quantum phenomena. And then accordingly, David Deutsch and then his partner Hosa, they also provided an indication. These were just theoretical studies that they said that we can have some problem solved with quantum computers. And then one breakthrough was by Vazirani and Bernstein. Vazirani provided a theory where he said that we can have quantum Fourier transformation with the help of a quantum computer. And that was used by Peter Shor to use it for discrete logarithm and refactoring for the composite numbers. And then this also, Grover's algorithm is also very famous, where it is for the searching with the help of quantum computer. Then there were some proposal for building a quantum computer, and particularly Seth Lloyd. He gave information about how a quantum computer can be built with the help of quantum particles. And then there were few other articles where people suggested that ions and molecules and the electrons and the photons, they can be used for coding information with the help of the properties of those electrons and photons, etc. Mainly the study was initially on the photons, and then later on it also went into other particles, which are elementary particles. However, Winslow gave a criteria that if you want to build a quantum computer, that it must meet this criteria. He gave 5 principles or 5 criterion. A scalable physical system with well-characterized qubits, the ability to initialize the state of the qubits, with the initial state. Long relevant decoherence time, because this was the problem that I will show you in the next slide what that problem is, coherence time. And then a universal set of quantum gates where we can manipulate the qubits, and specific qubit measurement capability so that we can measure the output of a qubit. Of course, this is also one of the problem which is still under research. Then there were two more criterion which were related to the teleportation or communication of the qubits from one place to the other. The ability to interconvert stationary and flying qubits, the ability to faithfully transmit flying qubits between specified locations. So these were 7 criteria. If any system meets these criteria, that can be called a quantum computer. Elementary particles which people used initially, it was photon, and later on electron, ions, and molecules. And also NMR, they used it initially. But what is the property? What is the mechanics behind this? We know the atomic structure. It has nucleus. In the nucleus, we have proton, neutron, and then we have electron. And electrons can be in various energy states. And we know from physics, which we studied at the initial stages of the college classes, that these are Fermi levels, or levels where the electron can be excited to, or they can be lowered to the lower energy states. So once an electron goes to the energy state, it can be raised with the help of external force, which may be a voltage or a current, any force. It can be light also. And once it goes from the higher energy state to lower energy state, it emits light in the form of light rays or the photons. And at various energy levels, once it is going to the ground energy state or the lower energy state, it emits light at a particular frequency or a particular wavelength. So this phenomena is very important to simulate an information into a particle. I will leave this, this is for another presentation. I will leave these 3 slides. This is actually the Schrodinger equation, which we did study in the engineering classes, but at that time we were studying semiconductor electronics. As I mentioned earlier, the transistor actions. There we had this Schrodinger equation and then de Broglie rule also. But this is for another presentation, so I leave it here. How can we represent information with the help of quantum states? Now, any particle, of course, it has momentum, it has speed, it can travel a distance around the nucleus, forms a cloud, but it has properties like spin. Spin can be with electron, polarization can be with photon, energy state can be with photon, electron, and other particles also. We have bosons, and then we have those other particles. But the information can be coded. If spin is up, we can say it is in state 0. If it is down, we can say it is in state 1. So these are 2 states. And in quantum mechanics, these states form a linear combination, which is called superposition. So each state is simultaneously available. We do not know beforehand or a priori in which state these particles are. That is called superposition. And each state can have its amplitude. Here we denote this with the help of alpha and beta. And each state is available with the help of a probability, which is alpha square or beta square. But coding of information means here a qubit is coded with the help of state, whether it is spin or polarization or energy state. If it is a ground state, then it is state 0. If it is excited state, it is state 1. Now, various technologies are available where people are trying to construct quantum computers, and they are using various physical phenomena and their properties to code the information in the form of 0 and 1 state. 0 and 1 state is called a qubit. And all those phenomena, there are 2 states available, and they can use those 2 states to code a qubit. Of course, some useful or some important quantum computers which are available are mainly 3 types. One is the superconducting computers. The other is the photon, based on photons. And then there are based on electrons. I will show you who they are. The quantum information state can be represented as I earlier said, a state 0 and 1 in the superposition form, with each having its amplitude. Each amplitude squared is the probability of observing that state, whether it is spin up or spin down, energy state higher or lower, polarization horizontal or vertical. And then, because these are 2 states, their sum should be equal to 1. The probability of both these states or any number of states should be 1. That is the criteria to simulate or to have an assumption that there are number of states. Here we are talking about 2 states, up and down. If there are more than that, again, that same criteria applies, that each has its probability, and the sum of the probability should be equal to 1. And these amplitudes, they can be integers, they can be real numbers, they can be complex numbers. And in most of the cases, they are complex numbers, because I will show you why they are complex numbers. So this alpha and beta can have different values. In the basis states, where we assume them to be co-normal, that is, they are 90 degrees to each other, then 0 state can be 1 and 1 state can be 0, or 0 state can be 0 or 1 state can be 1. These are the 2 basis states. And again, if you take their square and then sum them up, their sum is 1. You can also code them with the help of trigonometric functions, cosine theta, sine theta. Again, sine square theta, cosine square theta is 1. You can also have 1 over under root 2, which is actually the Hadamard transformation. And again, the sum is 1 if you scale them. You can have any other number. So there are so many possibilities in a continuum that we can have these 2 states represented by various numbers or various values, but keeping in the criteria there that their probability should be, sum of the probability should be 1. And this is shown with the help of a Bloch sphere. Sorry, this is Bloch SH. Now here it shows, this sphere shows that around a nucleus, if there is electron, it can have any position, and that position can be represented with the help of a 3-dimensional coordinate around a sphere, and we can have X coordinate, Y and Z coordinate, and accordingly the electron, which is represented by a vector, its property is represented by a vector, and this vector can assume any value, 1 or 0, or any other value in between, and with the angle on the z-axis or angle on the x-axis, all 3 axes are normal to each other. That means they are perpendicular to each other, having 90 degree. And all angles between 0 and pi can be represented with the help of any number, and then you can have a state defined accordingly. So number of properties which are available in the quantum particles defined in quantum mechanics, that is indeterminism. These are the properties which are used for various purposes for quantum computing and representation of information. Indeterminism means we do not know in which state a particular particle would be before we measure it. Interference. This is because a particle can have both a wave-like property or a particle property. This is called wave-particle duality, which is the last, which I have written here, last property. And this we studied, you know, when we were studying the semiconductor physics. So because each particle can have wave-like behavior, therefore, if there are two particles, they can interfere with each other and they can add or they can subtract the amplitudes. Uncertainty. Because of the position or momentum of the particle, we do not know earlier. Therefore, we are not certain about their position and momentum unless we measure. And once we measure, uncertainty principle says that we can measure only position. We cannot measure momentum at that time. Or we can measure momentum, we cannot measure position. Only one property can be measured at one time. Superposition, I have already indicated that the states are in superposition form, and unless we measure it, we do not know which value it will have. It will have value only because of the probability associated with each state. Entanglement is another property. When more than one particles are there, they entangle with each other, and that was shown by Bell. And once they are entangled with each other, their property is available at a distance. And this property can be used to transport information from place one to another. And nowadays, this has been shown by various organizations, both in Europe and in China and USA. Measurement is another property which is being researched, and it is because our measurement is probabilistic, and once we measure it, we have only one value available. And if there are number of possibilities available in the quantum state, then all those possibilities are zero except one. Reversibility. Now this property is unique because in our classical computing, our gates, they are irreversible. We cannot get from the output of an AND gate the input value. Here, if we have a gate, we can recover the input from the output. No cloning theorem is again another property which normally we used in the light wave communication also, where we use the light intensity modulation because once you try to measure in between, once the transmission taking place, then you cannot simulate a quantum bit once you are intercepting a communication. So that is because of no cloning theorem. You cannot, measure it and recreate. Quantum tunneling as another property, but this was also present in electronics, which we are having in the classical computers. That is, the junctions can be tunneled through by the electrons, and they can tunnel through by the particles also if we are in the nano or below nano scales. So these are the properties which are being utilized or which are being exploited to have quantum computation better and better. What operations? Now, this is the actual computer scientist role here. We have quantum state. First, we need to know what is bracket notation. Cat notation is that if we have a state 0, we represent this with the help of a vector which is 1 and 0. This means in the spin up, it is 100% sure. In spin down, it is not there. So this is one state. It is represented by a vector representing 1 for the up, 0 for the down. This is called cat notation. Similarly, if it is in state 1, it is represented by a vector 0, 1 in cat form. And it means that 100% we are sure that this is in state 1 and 0% we are sure that it is in state 0. Now, this is done for initializing any information with the help of a cat notation just to have abstraction for calculations. Actual state is represented by cat notation. This cat notation is that we have a bar, we have the state, and we have the arrowhead. So this is cat notation for both state 0 and 1. And the bra notation is that if we take the conjugate transpose of this, conjugate transpose. That is, we take the transpose and take the conjugate. Here you cannot visualize the conjugate because this is the real number. If we had the complex number, then you would know what is conjugate actually. So if it is transposed into a vector, which is a row vector, this was a column vector, then it is called bra. And bra is having a notation. You have the, state in between, arrowhead was on the left side, and then bar on the right. Similarly, you can convert this cat for 1 state into a row vector. And again, this is the conjugate transpose of state 1. So once we have bra and cat, if we see this bra here and cat here, if we multiply them as a dot product or inner product, if you see, I have done this for 2 cases. There can be 4 cases here, but I have shown only 2 cases. A bracket for 0, 0 state, these are 2 states, and a bracket for 0 and 1 state. Because this is the same state, if we take the inner product, we get 1. This means there is 100% correlation between them. Bracket for 0, 0 state. So if we have a state, or a matrix, or a vector, we take the inner product. If those vectors are having 100% correlation, we get an identity matrix or identity vector. Here it is the scalar. Inner product gives us the scalar. If we have the matrix multiplication, it will give us the identity matrix. And if they are out of phase, they are 90° out of phase, so bracket inner product gives us the 0 output, which is scalar, which indicates that they are normal to each other. That is at 90° to each other. Similarly, along with this inner product, we have an outer product, and outer product is we take cat and bra. So there we had multiplication of bracket. Here we have a multiplication of cat and bra. In cat and bra, we take the outer product, and this gives us a matrix. And normally, this matrix would depend upon the type of the elements. And here if we see the multiplication is a matrix, 2 by 2 matrix. Now, the state representation for 1 bit I had shown. This is that 1 bit. All states are shown as a ket, which is a column vector. So 0 state is a column vector, 1 state is a column vector. If we have a 2 qubits, that means 2 electrons or 2 photons. And if they are in a quantum state, then they can have 4 possibilities. And 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. And their state is again represented by a column vector. And this column vector is actually a tensor product between these two states. And tensor product is another product where ket and ket are multiplied, and it is only the multiplication between the elements, and then they are placed side by side in the form of a column. So 1 into 1 is 1, 1 into 0 is 0, 0 into 0 is 0, and 0 into 0 is 0. So this becomes a column vector, which is a tensor product between 0 and 0. Similarly, we can have a tensor product between 0 and 1. So we'll get this. And if you see, there is only one here in each column. And if we have 3 qubits, then again, we can calculate the tensor product between these 3 states, and we get the column vectors for each. So each combination of 3 states would be represented by a column vector, which is ket. And if we have n number of qubits, there will be 2 raised to power n number of states. Now, how can we have operations on those states? Here we have 2 examples. I have chosen the simpler one. Here, a simple concept is you have a state and you have an operator. Operator is a matrix and state is a ket. You have a matrix and a ket. Matrix and a ket. I hope you are seeing my this pointer. Katrina?
Yes, we can see it, Junaid.
Okay, you can see that. So we have this operator, which is a matrix. This operator is called NOT gate. It reverses 0 state into 1 state and 1 state into 0 state. These are the 2 basis states. So if you multiply this matrix, you get this column, which is actually 1 state. And similarly, if you multiply to 1 state, you will get 0 state. This is NOT gate. And another gate is Hadamard gate. And this is the matrix with 1 by under root 2 as a multiplier. And this gate, once you multiply this, you get 0 state and 1 state in superposition form, both having an amplitude of 1 over under root 2. And if you square this and sum this, you will get probability equal to 1. This is the proper indeterminate state where both states have probability equal. And this is the linear combination or superposition state, which is indeterminate. That is called indetermination. And normally, this is the transformation from the initialized state with the help of a gate that we can do this. Now, this all is a mathematical abstraction or mathematical representation of operation on the states, which are again a mathematical representation in the form of vector and matrices. So the difference between the classical computing and quantum computing is that in classical computing, we are having operations with the help of Boolean algebra, where we have AND gate, OR gate, NAND gate, and the universal gate is NAND gate. In quantum computing, we have operation with the help of linear algebra, which is based on vectors, matrices, tensors, and their operations. So that is the difference. And accordingly, we have a scope where it's much bigger than the Boolean algebra. Here we have another example. This is called CNOT gate. This gate is between two qubits. We have a matrix, which is a CNOT gate, and this matrix is applied to the state represented by two qubits, and this is 0, 0 state. If we apply this, we get the same state. The criteria here is the first qubit is a control bit, and the second qubit is the target qubit. So the control qubit and target qubit. If the control qubit is 0, nothing happens to the target qubit. And if control qubit is 1, the target qubit is inverted. So that is visible here in these two gates, in these two operations. So here in these two examples, 0, 0 state or 0, 1 state, nothing changes. But here, once the first qubit, which is the control qubit, is 1, then the next qubit is 0, it changes to 1. Here, next qubit is 1, it changes to 0. In the demo, I'll show you that on the actual computer also. Quantum operations, I have shown you only 3 gates, but there are a number of gates available. The gates which are on single qubit, those are 2 by 2 matrices, and those are called polygates. Then there are gates between 2 bits. They are matrices with 4 by 4 elements. And there are Toffoli gates which are on 3 qubits. For 3 qubits, you have to have an 8 by 8 matrix. So accordingly, people are designing various gates. These are not the only gates available, but these are popular gates which are so far available with various manufacturers or various suppliers of the quantum computers. I should not say suppliers, but they have made available the quantum computers for experimentations. So there are a number of gates available. And using those gates, we can create a circuit. Now, circuit is a line indicating a bit, qubit. So here this circuit is a circuit of 4 qubits, Q0, Q1, Q2, Q3. Now, each line indicates a qubit, 1 qubit. And its state can be represented by X1, X2, X3, X4. And these are the gates. These are the gates which change the polarization, which change the phase. So this is the Hadamard gate. These are the phasors, or these are the gates which change the phases. And then accordingly, no phases, I can just indicate that we studied in our undergraduate engineering courses, Fourier series. And Fourier series are made up of amplitude, frequencies, and phases. And we can have number of those trigonometric functions, which are Fourier series with their coefficients to form a particular wave, number of waves. So this is actually those number of waves which are available to form a Fourier transformation. This is actually a 4-bit Fourier transformation circuit, and this is simply one algorithm. So the complexity here, I will not go into the computational part there, which we study in computational complexity, depending upon how we see this as a P problem or NP problem or NP hard problem or NP complete problem. But here, complexity, we define how many number of qubits we are using and how many gates we are using. So the one of the provider like IBM, they have defined this as a quantum volume. Quantum volume means how many number of qubits and how many number of gates. There are limitations. We cannot have large number of qubits at this time. Available only 24, 12, 51, 52. And in one of the manufacturer, they have more than 2000. And Google has 53 bits. And also the number of gates, as we keep on increasing, noise keep on also increasing. So there is a limitation of number of gates also on a circuit. So at the moment, we are in the NISQ era. So how we see this as a black box? So this circuit is a quantum circuit. This quantum circuit is a black box. We can input classical bits into this. We measure this and we get classical output from this. And this can give us the computation whichever we want to design. And currently this is done with the help of classic computers. We have classic computer, and then these classical computers can give input to the quantum computer, which is really available nowadays, and then you can get the output from them. And this is how nowadays we can do the computation. Now, this is exactly like when we started with the computers. We had initially the XT computers, we had the floating point units, then we got a coprocessor, which was a DSP, then we have a coprocessor, which was GPU, and accordingly, this can be a coprocessor with the help of a classical computers. And there are some chips available which people are trying to experiment with the help of classical computers so that they can put that into the PCI slot and then it can be used as a coprocessor. No. How did I got into was this? It has threatened cryptography, as Peter Shor and Grover showed this with their theoretical results. And then there was a practical implementation of Shor and Grover by various people during the last 10 years. And they have shown that this is really possible. Then interim arrangement is that we are currently using quantum key distribution, where BBB84 and E91 are the two protocols which are being used by various organizations. And at a distance, China has shown this. Somebody in Europe is also shown this at a distance. Then permanent solution is only quantum-based cryptography, where we can have our classical input represented by quantum bits, and then they can have a quantum algorithm which can give us the block cipher. And I am working on this. A block cipher using only quantum computer. Important applications where the research is going on: cryptography, deep learning, and AI. Now, this is because our classical computer are now handicapped because the demand of deep learning and AI is much higher. Chemistry, the simulation of molecules, this is also being done with the help of quantum computers. Quantum physics is that you study the particle properties and carry out research on those particles with the help of quantum computing. And quantum information theory deals with the data compression and error control, which is also helpful in designing the quantum computers so that you can have a stable computer which does not have error. Tolerance time is as large as possible.
Hey, Javed, the time is actually 2 minutes past.
Yeah, I am now at the end.
Okay.
Now, these are the libraries available. Google, IBM, Rigetti, Microsoft, and this company is in Toronto, Zenodo. And they have also photon-based quantum computer, which you can utilize and you can have your experiment done on this. These are the references which I got. I have number of articles and then also other books. these are the books. These are the development help with me. And then there are other books which you can have your concepts clear. And this is my last slide. We have summary and then question and answer. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Javed. If you guys want to, if there are any questions, please feel free to ask them now. We are a little bit over time, but if you're curious, I don't want to block that. Give it a couple minutes. In between that, Javed, thanks for the amazing presentation. I know
No questions.
I know a lot of people are interested in quantum computing, so
okay.
Currently, I don't see any questions, but why don't we give it till 2:35, a couple minutes.
Okay. Okay. Demo is left. I can just show you demo.
We're actually.
This will be interesting because they can.
We're actually 5 minutes over the allotted time. Okay. But maybe we can get your email, and students, if they're interested, can email you and contact you about the demo then. Okay. But at this point, I'm actually going to thank everyone for joining us. And thank you for not just this session, but for all the sessions that we've had this year.
Yes, Steve has a question.
For the students that are in Ryerson Graduate Computer Science that have joined us today, we are currently in the election process. And if you're interested in being a part of this team and putting on events such as this for your fellow students, please get in contact with us, as well as answering the questionnaire that was sent to you. But here, I again once want to thank Javed and Katrina for their wonderful presentations, and to everyone here that joined us, and I bid you fare well and enjoy the rest of your day then. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. So everybody has left.